Hello everyone, I am Professor Jay Salve from the Department of Botany, Pratap College, Amaner Autonomous. Today we will understand the topic that is plant tissue with respect to the simple tissue and complex tissue, their type, functions, characteristics, etc. Let's see. So the plant tissue are the biological architecture from the cellular differentiation to the physiological integrations. Okay. So what are the plant tissue? Plant tissue are nothing but a group of similar cells that work in coordination to perform the specific function. Just as a human body is built from the various tissue types like muscle, nerve, connectives, plant also organize into a distinct tissue system that allows them to the function, grow, adapt to the environment. Okay, so there are two basic major categories under the plant tissue. First one is a simple tissue composed of a single type of cells, and complex tissue composed of a multiple cells type working in a concrete. Okay, sorry, working in a constant. This division reflects the increasing specialization needed as a plant evolved from the simple aquatic ancestor to the complex land dwelling organism. Core function of the plant tissue, basically there are so many function of the plant tissue. First one is the structural support, second protection, third transport, fourth storage, and fifth photosynthesis. Structural support, for the structural support, plant holding the plant upright against the gravity and environmental forces. So the tissue help in a holding a plant upright against the gravity and environmental forces. Tissue also help for protection purpose, shielding the internal tissues from the pathogens, desiccation and damage. Then also help in a transport of moving water, minerals and foods throughout the plant body, like a xylem carry the water and phloem carry the food. It also help in a storage of the accumulated water, starch and other nutrients for the metabolic use, and it also perform the process of the photosynthesis or help in a photosynthesis for capturing a sunlight to produce the organic compound. So understanding a plant tissue is a foundation of the plant biology, agriculture and botany. It helps scientists and farmers to optimize the crop growth, develop disease resistant varieties and understand how the plant respond to the environmental stress. Okay, so basically tissue evolved from the different cells that we known as a developmental pathway. From the meristematic cells they get differentiated to form the permanent tissue. Again from the permanent tissue they can convert into a meristematic tissue through the de-differentiation process. Okay, so during the meristematic tissue differentiation they can also form the secondary permanent tissue. Okay, unlike the animal cells, plant cells exhibit high plasticity. De-differentiation allows permanent tissue cell to regain the meristematic activity, a property of the fundamental to grafting and wound regeneration. Okay, so what is simple tissue? Simple tissue are the most basic organizational unit in the plant anatomy. As the name suggests, they composed of only one type of cell, which allows each tissue type to be highly specialized for a particular role. These tissue are found throughout a plant body, in a root, in a stem, in a leaf, in a fruit, and collectively form a what botanists call ground tissue system. Basically, plant tissue, simple tissue, having a three basic types or classes named as a parenchyma, the most abundant, versatile, simple tissue living cell with thin walls function in the storage, photosynthesis, and wound healing, found in virtually every organs of the plants. Then collenchyma, living cells with evenly thickened wall, provide a flexible mechanical support to the young, actively growing regions such as stem, petioles, and leaf margin. And last one is the sclerenchyma, which is composed of a dead cells at maturity with heavily lignified rigid wall, provide a hardness and tensile strain to the mature plant structure, subdivided into fiber and sclera. Together, these three tissue type cover all the full spectrum of the structural and metabolic needs in the ground tissue system, from the soft metabolically active storage zones to the hard protective outer layers of the seed and fruits. The progression from the parenchyma to the sclerenchyma reflects increasing rigidity and decreasing the cellular activity. This diagram usually reinforces the concept that simple plant tissue and are homogeneous, consisting of cells that are uniform in the structure and function. So Here is a figure of the simple tissue. First one is the parenchyma, which is fundamental living with thin cellulosic wall. The intercellular space present between the parenchymatous cells, parenchymatous tissue. Collenchyma, the flexible support, which provide a flexible support, which are also living, but cell wall is mainly made by the cellulose as well as pectin at the corner. Okay, and last one is the sclerenchyma. The cell intercellular space is absent here, which provide a rigid support and which are dead in nature due to the lignified cell wall like xylem tissue. Simple tissue are composed of a single type of cell structurally and functionally, which is uniform in nature. That's why they are known as a simple tissue. First one is a parenchyma, the most common simple tissue. The cell structure and characteristic. Parenchyma cells are living cell characterized by their thin, flexible primary cell wall made by the primary cellulose. They are typically isodiametric, roughly equal in all dimensions, large in size, and contain a prominent central vacuole. The cells maintain active metabolic processes throughout the life of the plants and allowing them to perform the wide range of function. Their thin wall allows easy the gas-phase exchange. Okay, they solute between cells, making them to ideal for the both storage and metabolic activity. Parenchyma cells also retain the ability to divide and differentiate, giving them to a key role in wound healing and tissue regeneration. Certain key functions include the food and water storage, accumulate the starch, sugars, oil, and water in a vacuoles. Then photosynthesis, Chlorenchyma, parenchyma with chloroplast, that is known as a chlorenchyma in the leaves, which perform the function of the photosynthesis. Then gaseous exchange, that's specialized parenchymatous cells is known as aerenchyma. The parenchyma with air sac, that is known as aerenchyma in aquatic plants, which store the air, which also provide a buoyancy and aeration in a particular plant species. Then tissue repair, this parenchyma cells having a capacity of redifferentiation and regenerate the damaged regions. Okay, this secretion, some parenchyma cell produce a resin, latex, and nectars. Okay, this anatomical microscopic image provide a detailed view of parenchyma cells in a cross section, highlighting their characteristics: thin primary cell wall, prominent cell vacuoles, visible nuclei, and cytoplasm. Uh, the real world example is the soft juicy of the fruit apple, mangoes, and tomatoes, predominantly parenchymatous tissue. Okay. Similarly, starch storing cells in a potato tubers and pulp of the sugarcane are the parenchymatous cells or parenchymatous tissue. Even the pith central region of the sunflower cornerstem consists largely of parenchymatous cells. Okay. Then parenchyma, the metabolic hub. Okay. The parenchyma when store the plastid, that is known as a chlorenchyma, which perform the process of the photosynthesis. When the parenchyma cells store parenchyma tissue store the air which provide a buoyancy in hydrilla plants. Okay, when the parenchyma cells store the particular starch within them, that is known as a storage tube functions. And in a xerophytic condition, this parenchymatous cells store the water. Okay, so the parenchymatous cells provide a very important function in a metabolism, secretion, and regeneration. Okay. Second one, collenchyma, a flexible supportive tissue. So collenchyma represent an elegant botanical engineering solution, a support tissue that strong enough to hold the plant's organs upright yet flexible enough to allow the continued growth. It is one of the most fascinating tissue types in the botany. Uh, Precisely because of the dual nature strength without rigidity. Cellular structure, collenchyma cells are living at the maturity and possess unevenly thickened primary cell wall rich in cellulose and pectin, but notably lacking a lignin. This thickening is typically concentrated at the corners of the cell's angular collenchyma or along with the tangential wall, lamellar collenchyma. This uneven deposition of the is what gives us both strength and flexibility to the elongated alongside the growing tissue. Location of the collenchyma tissue. Collenchyma mainly found in the just beneath the epidermis of the young stem, petiole of the leaf stalk, and midrim of the leaf. It is primarily tissue. It is a primary tissue, meaning it formed during the initial growth phase before the woody tissue develop. Its primary role is to provide a mechanical support to the growing organ that are still inactive, elongating, where the rigid tissue like a sclerenchyma would impede growth. It also offers the protection from the bending stage caused by the wind and weight of the leaf and flowers. Okay, so the corner of the this particular collenchyma are very thick. Okay, and mainly composed of the pectin, and the cell wall is a thin. Okay, and they are living in nature. Okay, so the anatomical diagram illustrates the collenchyma tissue in a cross section, clearly showing the characteristic uneven thickening of the primary cell wall. The family springy, crunchy texture, Shirley stalk caused by the prominent collenchyma. Okay, collenchyma diagram given is here, which provides tensile strain without a rigidity. There is a at the corner there is a pectin deposition found. That's why they provide a rigidity to us. Also provide a support. Uneven pectin thickening allows the tissue to stretch, supporting growing organ like petiole, young stem without snapping. The when the corner at the thickening at the they are known as angular type of collenchyma. When the plate-like tangential thickening is there, they are known as a lamellar type of a collenchyma. When the thickening is around the air spaces, that is known as a lacunar type of a collenchyma. Third last type of a simple tissue, that is a sclerenchyma, a rigid supportive tissue. Sclerenchyma is the most rigid of the all simple tissue. Its cells are dead at functional maturity. The living protoplast disappear once they heavily thicken. Lignified secondary walls are fully formed. Lignin in the same polymer that make a wood hard. It deposited in a thick layer, giving a sclerenchyma cells extraordinary mechanical strength, hardness, and resistance to the compression, tension, and decay. Sclerenchyma cells have narrow lumen, inner cavities, and rare are often interlocked with each other, and further enhancing their collective structural integrity. There are basically two subtype of a sclerenchyma. First one is a fiber and second one is a sclerid. That is also known as a stone cells. Fibers are long, slender, elongated cells with prominent ends. They often occur in the bundles and provide tensile strength resistant to the pulling force found in the stem, leaf, and surrounding vascular bundles. Commercially important, for example, include hemp fiber, that is cannabis sativa, used in a rope and textile and paper industry. Then jute fibers for the quercus, used in a burlap and packaging. And third one is a flax fiber, asiaticum Linum asiaticum, used in a linen fabric. And second is a sclerid, also known as stone cell, which is a short, irregular, isodiametric branched cells. They are harder than the fiber and provide a resistance to the compression and crushing found in the seed coats, nut shells, and fruit wall. Pear placed in the girthy texture come from the cluster of the sclera called as a stone cell. Then coconut shell composed of almost entirely densely packed sclerids. Walnut and peach pits, their harder shells are the sclerid-rich endocarps. Okay. Young sclerenchyma living in nature with thin primary wall and intact protoplast, but at the maturity they become a dead with thick lignified secondary walls provide a rigid support. The sclerenchyma, the dead structural skeleton, having two types as discussed in a previous slide, that is fiber which provides tensile strength and sclerid which provide a compressive strength. Okay. So the properties of the sclerenchyma include dead at the maturity, protoplast absent, walls are heavily lignified, and the examples are pear grit, okay, nut shells, and seed coat. Okay, and because of the sclerenchyma tissue, they are also economically important in some jute and hemp and flax plants. Okay, comparative account between the different type of simple tissue that are we discussed in a previous slide. Uh, Features include cell wall in a parenchyma is a thin with cellulose and having a uniform structure. In a collenchyma, it is uneven and composed of mainly cellulose and pectin. In a sclerenchyma, the cell wall is a thick and lignified, which is hard in a nature. The vitality, that means living nature. The parenchyma are living in a nature. Collenchyma is also living, and sclerenchyma is also living at the young stage, but it become a dead at maturity. The function of the parenchyma tissue, which include metabolism, second storage, and first for the packing. And the collenchyma function include it provides tensile support, it provides elasticity in a particular tissue, and sclerenchyma provide a mechanical strength and also protect from the different injuries. Then how where the simple tissue get found or their occurrence, they found universal in a soft parts. Collenchyma mainly found in dicot stems and petioles. Sclerenchyma mainly found in a wood, hard seeds and fiber. Okay, the complex tissue. The second part is a complex tissue. The complex tissue definition and importance. The complex tissue is a composed of a single type of simple tissue is composed of a single type of cell, but complex tissue are made by the two or more distinct type of cell that function together as a integrated unit. This completely reflect the need of specialized long distance transport system in a vascular plants, a key evolutionary innovation that allow plant to colonize land and grow to the impressive height. Multi-cell composition. Okay, each complex tissue contain multiple specialized cell types. Some cells are live, some cells are dead, that collaborate to accomplish the sharp physiological function. Not a single cell type alone could perform these roles. So that's why coordination interaction or different cells make the complex tissue so effective. This analogous to how the different organs work together in a animal body system. Okay, then how the primary complex tissue formed. Basically, the complex tissue is composed of the xylem and phloem in a plant. Xylem, from the Greek word xylon, means wood, handles the upward transport of water and dissolve inorganic mineral from roots to the aerial parts of the plant like leaf, fruit, flower, etc. The phloem, from the Greek word phloeos, means bark, manages the bidirectional distribution of the photosynthetically produced sugars, that is carbohydrate and organic compounds, to meet all the metabolically active tissues. Together they form a vascular bundle and the plant circulatory highways. The evolutionary significance of the complex tissue include the vascular tissues. Xylem and phloem was a landmark event in the plant evolution. It enables plant to grow all competitive for the light, for the transport of water from soil to the canopy, for to allocate the photosynthetic product to the roots, fruits, and growing tips. Without complex tissue, plant life will be restricted to the low mass like forms and permanently depend on the surface moisture. Okay, so the basically complex tissue is composed of xylem and phloem, and simple tissue mainly composed of the parenchyma, collenchyma, and sclerenchyma. Okay, so here is a puzzle diagram which is used for the collaborative to form a unified tissue. Complex tissue are found throughout the plant. Is structure called as vascular bundle. The characteristic arrangement as a veins in the leaves, ring in a bundle in a dicot. Okay, the complex tissue, the vascular infrastructure. Okay, they are heterogeneous in origin because they compose of a multiple type of cells. That's why they are heterogeneous in natures. They are composed of a multiple cell type working as a single unit. The vascular bundle, xylem, uh, they are a hydrology, roots to aerial. They conduct the water and minerals from root to the aerial parts of the plant. Phloem, which having a assimilatory in nature because they provide food from the source to the sink. That from the food manufacturing part, that is lead to the required part, that is known as a sink to source. Okay. Diagram also indicate that the arrow also indicate in a first figure is that uh, xylem is a unidirectional movement and phloem shows a bidirectional movement. Xylem, a water transport tissue, cellular component of the xylem. Xylem is composed complex tissue composed of four type of a distinct cell type, each contributing the specific role. Xylem is composed of a vessel element, tracheids, xylem fiber, and xylem parenchyma. Xylem elements first, sorry, vessel elements. Vessels are a wide, short cell stacked into it to form a continuous piece of protoplasm. Perforation plates at the end to allow free flow of water. Most efficient water conductors and found mainly in angiosperm, that is flowering plants. Tracheids elongated, tapered in, that conduct the water through the pits in their walls, found in all vascular plants including ancient ferns, gymnosperm. Less efficient than the vessel but provide a structural overlap. Xylem fiber, they are a dead, thick walled cells providing additional mechanical support and tensile strength to the vascular bundle and surround the tissue. Last one element of the xylem, that is a xylem parenchyma. They mainly uh, living in cells, mature xylem, the only living cells in the mature xylem, store starch, lipid, assist in a lateral transport of water and solute, and aid in a wound response. So what are the function of the xylem, which include a different function? Xylem important for the water transport, xylem important for the dissolved mineral transport, because they transport water from the root to the aerial parts of the plants. They also driven by the some complementary forces like root pressure. Osmotic pressure from the mineral absorption in root pushes the water upward, that is known as a root pressure. Then capillary action, adhesion and cohesion of the water molecule to narrow vessels walls for the capillary action. That's why the water get transported from the root to the shoot through the transpiration. Okay, then transpiration pull, the dominant force evaporating water from the lip surface create a tension that pulls the water column upward because of the transpiration pull. Okay, then secondary function, structural support. In the tree woody plants, secondary xylem, that is also known as wood, form a bulk of the trunk, providing an enormous comprehensive tensile strength. Annual growth ring visible in wood cross sections and represent alternating bands of the spring wood, wide vessel, and summer wood, narrow vessels and more fibers. A picture of the xylem, the hydrological system, because they carry the water, that's why they are known as a hydrological system. Tracheids, which having a tapering ends, which is a primitive high resistance which is present mostly in a gymnosperm and almost all flowering plants. The vessel element having a perforation plates, uh, which having a perforation which are advanced and low resistance pipe in angiosperm. The conducting elements mostly in a xylem, two conducting elements are there which are dead. They are lignified like tracheids and vessels. For the providing support, xylem fibers is there which is also dead, and the purpose of the storage, xylem parenchyma is there which are living. Out of the four element, tracheid, vessels and xylem fiber are dead in nature, and rest one, that is parenchyma, which is living in nature. Here is actual diagram of the xylem elements. Xylem tissue in a plant cell left, and a different element of the xylem tissue. Or tracheids, trachea or vessels, then xylem, parenchyma and phloem fibers. Okay, phloem, a food transport tissue. While the xylem handle the upward movement of water, and the phloem is responsible for distributing the plant photosynthetic product, that is organic compound, primarily sucrose and amino acid, to every part of the plant that cannot be produced their own foods. This process is called as a translocation, and one of the most energy intensive transport process in a plant physiology. uh, Phloem having a different elements. First element is a CO2 element. Second element is a companion cell. Third element is a phloem fiber, and fourth element is a parenchyma. Sieve elements, the primary conducting cells of the phloem. These are the living cells arranged into it with sieve plates, perforated walls at the allow cytoplasmic connection and mass flow of the sugar. Usually, mature sieve tube elements lack a nucleus, relying on the companion cells for the metabolic support. The lumen is filled with the phloem sap and concentrated solution sucrose up to the 30%, which also consists of the amino acid, hormones, and signaling molecules. Second element is the companion cells, intimately associated with the CO2 element via numerous plasmodesmata. Plasmodesmata is nothing but an interconnecting bridge between two adjacent cells. They actually they are nothing but a door of the plants via the bridge. Okay, they having a large nuclei, metabolically active cells, uh, Many mitochondria they reform the essential function of the adjacent sieve elements. Okay, the loading sugar from mesophyll cells and controlling CO2 metabolism, assisting in a phloem unloading to the sink tissue without companion cells. Sieve tubes will be a seize the function. Okay. Then phloem fibers. Phloem fibers are the sclerenchyma like cells providing a structural support to the soft conducting cells commercially. Blast fiber example flax and jute are a phloem fibers, and phloem parenchyma store the starch and fat, assist in a lateral translocation, help in a load and unload sugar. Together, these four type of cell functionally integrated tissue capable for the bidirectional long distance transport of the organic solid. Out of these sieve tube elements, trace the of fiber in to in and sieve plates also there. Okay, phloem, the assimilator transport. Actually, this is a Zomato carrier. Okay, they transport a from and deliver whether the food cannot be manufactured. Okay, the diagram itself represents a sieve conducting channel living but lack the nucleus at the maturity. A companion cell, it is also known as sister cell, it having a nucleus that control the metabolic activity of the sieve tube. And the phloem fiber is also known as a bast and which are dead cells which support in a particular phloem structure. Here is the actual diagram of the phloem elements. Companion cells, then sieve tubes, phloem parenchymatic cells, vascular bundle. Okay, sclerenchyma, cambium, meristematic zone, center, epidermis, xylem, phloem. These are the certain anatomical parts of the plants. The arrangement of a xylem and phloem with cambium sandwiched between them allow for the secondary thickening and formation of the wood. Okay, evolutionary significance, the conquest of the land. Okay, challenge, gravity, solution, collenchyma, sclerenchyma. They are internal skeleton of the plant body, also known as a simple tissue. Dry air solution. Okay, vascular system provide internal plumbing to the plant's aquatic environment. uh, some parenchyma cells provide buoyancy support. Then terrestrial environment, gravity plus desiccation provided by the root meristem. Economical and applied anatomy, the complex tissue is a very important when we are dealing with the xylem. Mostly secondary xylem is known as a wood. When the secondary growth takes place inside a plant body, the strongest anatomical part becomes. So that's why timber and fuel industry having a high demand. For example, teak and pine wood. It also helpful in a textile and cordage industry. For example, phloem bast fibers, jute, flax, hemp for making a rope, etc. Then pharmacognosy, microscopic identification of the herbal drugs to detect the alteration and agriculture, storage, parenchyma, caloric staples, etc. The holistic plant body. Collenchyma help in a flexible support to withstand the resistance, wind resistant. Parenchyma, also known as a chlorenchyma, when they can store the chlorophyll pigment inside them or plastic, that is known as a photosynthetic factory. Then secondary xylem and sclerenchyma are structural pillar. They are actually a beam of the house, okay, column of the house, which provide a structural pillar and water transport. Meristem, site of genesis and differentiation. Simple tissue provide a local metabolism support. Complex tissue provide a system wide logistic. Together they enable a terrestrial life. These are the certain example references. Thank you so much.